Evergrande's glory days are officially over.
This was the scene outside Evergrande's offices. Once China's biggest developer, it has now been officially delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. From a once thriving property empire to the world's most indebted developer and now in liquidation. What happened? Was this downfall self-inflicted, the result of years of high leverage and breakneck expansion? Or was it driven by policy tightening and a crisis too deep to reverse? What kind of butterfly effects does this have on China's economy and ordinary people? Welcome to our Thinkchina Insights series. Let's get into this. Hui Kai-yan, the founder of Evergrande, unlike the lavish lifestyle he would later be known for, was born into a poor rural family and raised by his grandmother in the late 50s. He worked his way through college and eventually founded Evergrande, becoming the richest man in Asia in 2017. Under his leadership, Evergrande also grew into a nationwide empire, touching nearly every corner of people's lives. At its market peak, the company's value reached over $50 billion, and people had huge confidence in it. However, in 2021, Evergrande found itself with over $300 billion in debt, sending China's housing market into a tailspin.
But they announced in September 8th, so they will stop. They are not able to give the money to us. But he is the CEO of Henda Finance Company, and he took out his money in advance. But for us, we don't know where to get our money. And now we go to Shenzhen government and nobody help us.
After nearly 2 years of failed attempts and last-ditch efforts, Evergrande was ordered to liquidate itself, with its stock market valuation shrinking by 99% to 0.16 Hong Kong dollar. Hui was taken into custody under investigation in 2023. In August this year, Evergrande was officially delisted from the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Once a symbol of China's real estate boom, Evergrande has now become the defining emblem of its bust. So what turned Evergrande, once China's real estate giant, into the world's most indebted and now notorious developer?
That's actually a very long kind of a history about the Chinese real estate bubble. And the government noticed that for quite a long time. And as you can check for those kind of very high-profile government statement and the policies that they are addressing for this kind of concerns repeatedly. So there are the policies addressing those kind of 3 red lines, which actually trying to make the market understand there is some kind of a threshold which exceed which would be very dangerous, that the government will actually enact, or the government would respond in a very harsh way.
So this marked the start of the industry's deleveraging. Meanwhile, Evergrande relied heavily on leverage, having already gone through repeated liquidity crunches and somehow always managing a last-minute escape. But this time, there was no way out. After breaching all 3 red lines, Evergrande couldn't get new loans to cover its existing debts. And with its cash flow cut off, it failed to deliver homes that millions of buyers had already paid for.
我是17年冬前花250万购买的2套公寓。那么项目在20年的时候断断续续，因为回迁和债务问题导致了项目停工。那么在21年底，像恒大暴雷之后，项目就彻底停工了。这个到现在为止的话，总包已经撤走了。那么项目进展非常缓慢，虽然政府在努力的推动，但是效果非常的微弱，我们也没有什么别的方法来解决这个问题。
Its collapse sent shockwaves through China's broader property market. And this time, housing prices never rebounded. So how hard has the property market crisis hit China's overall economy and ordinary people?
Well, yeah, that's actually something that I would like to share. That is, in my view, this is the part where the government may not have fully anticipated. We all would like to see a kind of a reasonable real estate market. However, when you make the bubble burst, side effect actually is quite striking as well. When we are out of the COVID, we've already see a weak market. We've already see a very tight labor market. On the other hand, the properties we're holding actually got the value being cut significantly. So this will make the average Chinese families, like rich Chinese families, for example, stop buying, luxury goods or high-end products, and which will generate a so-called, vicious cycle. And this will further weakening the market demand. And this further weakened market demand will make the supply more difficult, and therefore more kind of laid off or less decent jobs available, etc., and make people have a kind of a more kind of a gloomy perspective about the future. Therefore, every Chinese families will then follow and reduce their consumptions and increase their savings. So at the end of the day, this vicious cycle go on and make the whole economy's recovery after the pandemic looks quite weak. All of this indeed can be traced back to the real estate. So I guess the first thing you need to consider to change is that we have to liberate the local government from the so-called land fiscal kind of bindings. If we switch from the land sales to the property tax, then the local government actually can get their sort of stable streamline of the income from the tax of the occupants of those kind of properties. The second one is that the central government needs to design a kind of a distribution kind of a mechanism when the government actually collects the public funds from tax or from fees, from fares or whatever. You should give a reasonable proportion to the local government in a reasonable way, rather than ask the local government to find their own ways to raise money, raise fiscal funds. The third one about such kind of a change is that the local government actually needs to change their rules. Their rules is not only the public servants to the local residents. Their rules are also the developers for the regional economy, so that they have a very strong incentive to get the money and invest in the manufacturing sector. This eventually make uncoordinated kind of investment in different Chinese regions, and at the end of the day, we see very, very much kind of overlapped kind of investment, and eventually too many capacities, they are so similar. Production capacity, they are so similar, and eventually this results in overcapacity. This sort of the complicated mechanism needs to be fundamentally or radically reformed, so as to avoid such kind of chain effect or magnified effect from the burst anymore. Like we don't want to have this kind of a magnified effect from one real estate bubble burst to the whole economic bubble burst, which is not supposed to be the way. And we need to find a kind of a solution for this, for the sustainable growth in the future. So we need to cut the government's kind of reliance on the land sales. And this is actually very important as well.